Hey everybody, welcome back to HemingwayLand.com, your source for quality, affordable land in the state of New Mexico. So we've got another one of these rare, coveted 1-acre properties in Tres Piedras, and I'm going to do something a little different in today's video. I'm not going to talk so much about the specifics of the land because it's been covered in, well, for instance, this video that's on the top of every Tres Piedras page that we have, as well as just pretty much every write-up we've done on this at this point. So if you're new to Tres Piedras, what I would highly encourage you to do, if you don't know much about the subdivision, just come to our New Mexico listing page. The very first listing we have in Taos County is the sort of learn everything you can about Tres Piedras page. Click learn more. It's going to take you here. We've got a write-up on it. We've got our spreadsheet, our master list of all the properties that we have. But then, most importantly, we have this frequently asked questions section. And I promise you, I've been answering questions about these properties for longer than I care to admit, and I haven't had anybody ask anything in the last, I don't know, year and a half that isn't on this FAQ. So if you really want to learn about this, read this. It's easier to read this than it is to try and get me on the phone, okay? Anyway, whatever the case, this specific property is a 1-acre lot. And one of the things that I don't really cover a lot in the FAQ, one of the things I haven't talked much about in these videos is why 1-acre properties are so scarce. Now, most of you who are coming to the channel and who have been scouting Taos properties for some time, you know that it's exceptional to find something like this, much less to find it at this price, which is why when we do get these 1-acre properties, they tend to sell in a weekend, if not a day. So for what it's worth, I just wanted to kind of talk about why these things are so scarce. And in the course of that, I'll also bring this up on a map, show you guys where this is, and so on and so forth. So with all that said, if you do want to call and talk to me about this, this is reference number TSNM 5796. It's the number you would reference. Located in Taos County, 1 acre in Tres Piedras Estates. And of course, it's a combination of 2 adjacent half-acre lots in Unit 3. And if we click any one of these GPS coordinates right here, it will bring it up here on the Google Maps. So first off, of course, as always, Tres Piedras is in very close proximity to nearby Taos down here, Happening town of Taos, as well as the Taos Ski Valley up here. Our headlines say 20 minutes. It's 20 minutes as the crow flies. Maybe it's a 30-minute drive, something like that. But the point is that it's very close to both of these enviable locations. Now, the Tres Piedras subdivision is one that covers all of this space right here. There's 9 units in it. The first 5 are all half-acre units, and the last 4 are all quarter-acre units. So the point is there are no 5-acre properties, no 10-acre properties. There are no 1-acre properties. If you want something even that big, you have to find, 2 adjacent lots and have somebody sell them to you, which is really hard to do, I promise. Anyway, the specific property that we're talking about, 5796, sits up here in Unit 3. It straddles this road over here, which is Colorado Road, as well as this one. It has legal access really on 3 sides, but the cutouts are clearly this road and this road. Generally, people always ask about plat maps. Taos County has plat maps. They've never been digitized, and they're massive. They're wall-sized. So to give you a sort of representation here of size, shape, location of the property, this is what it looks like. But we've gone through the trouble to make this sort of generic plat map representation here. So basically, if you're in Unit 1 or Unit 9 or you're in Block 100 or 1000, this is going to be the way that the lots are configured. A is followed by B, by C, by D, by E, etc. C is adjacent to H, A is adjacent to J, so on and so forth. So E and F look like this, and they have legal access on here, this side, and then there would be a legal easement right here, though again, the 2 more obvious ones are on the right and left of it. Anyway, with all that said, this specific property is roughly about a mile plus, 1.8 miles, something like that, north of the highway, north of the 64. If we right-click and measure distance, you can see it's like that. But it's a nice straight shot really up this road right here, which is a pretty well-maintained road. It's called Calabro down here. It's called Colorado up by the property. You figure it out. I don't know. The closer, of course, you are to the highway, the more likely you are to encounter utilities, power out there, because you'll see there are some people living in this region. Now, as we make our way up toward the property, it's either this home or this home that looks to be the last one that has power lines on the property. The rest of these people are probably using some sort of solar or alternative system for lighting and energy of the house. That is common out here in the subdivision. Now, these 2 properties I just pointed out are roughly about a mile from this one. So if your intention is to build on the land, you're most likely going to be dealing with solar, unless you do want to talk to the local utility company about getting power poles extended 1 mile north. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so with all that said, I'm just going to go here. I'm going to bring up the photo gallery so we have pretty pictures to look at, because I want to talk about why it is so difficult to find 2 adjacent lots out there. So first off, the developer who came in back in the 60s and bought up all this land that is Tres Piedras Estates, like a lot of developers, they were under the impression that, okay, the more properties we create, the more we can sell, the more money we can make. So, of course, they didn't chop them up into a bunch of generous 5-acre properties. They chopped everything up into halves and quarter acres. And in the early 60s, that was fine. And in the early 60s, they made this argument that, oh my God, this is going to be great. There's going to be, hotels and condos, and they're going to be right by the ski valley, and you're going to be able to do X, Y, and Z out here, and it's going to be fantastic. And your, X dollar investment today is going to be worth $1 million by 1975, or whatever the sales pitch was. I don't know, but you get the point. So they successfully sold a bunch of properties throughout the 60s. And of course, because they were offering them at such a high dollar value, there weren't a lot of people who were buying more than one. So that's the first reason why it's hard to find adjacents, because you literally need to find 2 separate people who own property next to each other. So that's number one. Number two, as time went on in the 1970s, certain environmental concerns became a thing, became, fashionable, and the state came up with rules, environmental rules about essentially water and septic. Now, if you're in a developed region like Albuquerque or Las Cruces, you're in the heart of downtown, whatever, Santa Fe, this isn't an issue. But if you're out in rural areas like this that don't have city utilities, they have rules for if you're going to have a property, how you install a well and how you install a septic, and they need to be yay distance apart so as one does not contaminate the other. And because of that, basically it made anything under 3/4 of an acre unlivable. Now, that's not totally true. You will hear the conventional wisdom in New Mexico is, oh, you can't build on anything under 3/4 of an acre. No, you can, but there's workarounds for it, and it's, too complex to get into this video. But the point is that it basically devalued all of these 1/4 and 1/2 acre properties, and it did it in this subdivision as well as many other subdivisions throughout the state. So now you had a bunch of people who spent good sums of money in the 60s, and they find out their property is basically worthless in the 70s. And so they either lose interest in it, number one, or number two, time goes on and, person A and person B are on the deed, and person A dies and person B has no time, inclination, or concern about getting the property put into their name. And so, then they run into us, 50 years later, and we're trying to buy their property, and we can't because there's a dead person on the deed. The other thing that happens is you'll have both, person A, person B die, and the property goes to their kids, or the kids think they own the property because they're paying the taxes for 30 years, but in fact they don't. But the county's not going to tell them that because they're a constant source of money. So the point is that decades pass, people think they own land they don't own, and they can build on it, they can pay the taxes on it, but they can't sell it to us and they can't sell it to you. So that's another problem. Now the third big thing that you run into is that the original developer, the company that was selling all this land, went bankrupt in the 70s. And that in itself is a long story. But with their bankruptcy, for various reasons, the state never bothered to try and take back any of these properties. So in 1979, this company goes out of business. And, New Mexico has this rule, like 3 years you don't pay your taxes, we're going to come take your land. It doesn't always work that way. But for some reason, this company hasn't paid on these properties since 1979, and yet this company's name is on literally about half the land that's out there. So, when we talk to people, when we're trying to buy property, a lot of times we're buying it from people who've inherited the equity, don't care about it, haven't seen it in 30 years type of thing. And so they'll sell it to us at a price that's, very low, and then we're able to sell it to you guys at a price that's very low. If we were making $1 million offers to everybody in this subdivision for their property, yeah, we might come upon more adjacent lots. But, based on everything I've seen, and we've spoken to hundreds of owners out there, I don't think we'd come upon that many adjacent lots. So the point is that between dead people on deeds, bankrupt company owns land that, you can't do anything with, and, basically those two circumstances, you don't encounter a lot of properties where someone is willing to sell to you and has the ability to sell to you, and then of course we'll agree to our price. So that's why finding 3/4 acre properties that total 3/4 of an acre, and hey, now you don't have to deal with all the permitting hurdles for water and septic, or even finding 2 1/2 acre properties, that's why it's so difficult. Occasionally we'll find two adjacent owners who want to sell their property, but there turns out to be some issue somewhere in the deed history, and we can buy from one, but we can't buy from the other. So it's why I always get very excited when we do manage to get these and we can list them for you. And of course, these are really good sellers. I mean, the most common question that I get from people all the time is they look at this spreadsheet and they'll call us and they'll say, I want to buy 3 adjacent lots. Which ones are adjacent? And, I think the spreadsheet is configured in a fairly logical alphanumerical order, but a lot of people don't get that. So they'll call and say, can I buy X, Y, and Z? Are they adjacent? And I have to say, no, if they were adjacent, we would sell them that way. So this would be an example of us selling 2 adjacent lots that way, etc. Anyway, so that's my spiel. That's why it is so difficult to find adjacent lots out there. So when you do find something like this, I encourage you guys, I know I'm going to get calls this weekend. Hey, I'd like to go out and scout the property. Well, if you can scout it in an afternoon, then you should go do it. But I really don't have high hopes that this is going to be available after more than a few days, because that is generally my experience, my observation, and the history that I've had with these rare sort of, adjacent lots that we do get out there. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. I just wanted to go into some depth, into some detail about why it is so exceptional for us to get these. We get calls all the time about it, and then I try to give some kind of shorthand answer to it like this. But point is that it's an area fraught with a lot of dead owners and bankrupt companies, and very difficult to get this sort of thing. So if it is something that you're interested in, please come up here, click the Buy Now button. It'll take you to this secure checkout page. You give us legal name for deed, tax address, agree to the terms of service, and on the very next page, we're going to ask you for some credit or debit card information. Once you give us that, we're going to be in the process of deeding the property in your name. That being said, we own this land right now. Like all the lots on HemingwayLand.com, we own every property here. So once you give us the money, as far as we're concerned, you are now the new owner. Please go out there, begin, doing whatever you want, camping, building, hiking, surveying, staking out the property, have a party. But we will be working on getting the paperwork into your name. For the record, that process is very easy. Within 24 hours, we're going to have a deed to you in an email. Once you approve it, we're going to autograph it, notarize it, and mail it off to the Taos County Clerk to be recorded. They will record, and they will forward it on to you. So from start to finish, maybe it's about 3 weeks before that's in your hand. But as noted, once you give us the money, the land is yours to do with as you please. So hopefully you guys who are calling all the time asking about adjacent lots, when are you going to have some next? Hopefully you're watching this and you're acting sooner rather than later. With all that said, thanks for watching, everybody. Much appreciated, and we will see you in the next video.